I used to travel this street quite a bit.
God, yeah.
Joe Page lived down the street there.
All right. We are actually live right now, and I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction right quick.
All right.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is a very special episode of the Let's Talk show here on UrbanCast. I'm sitting down today having a casual conversation with our Congressman Cleo of the 6th Congressional District. I definitely want to encourage everyone who's following us today, who chime in today, to make sure you hit that share button, that like button, ask a question. I'm sure folk from Congressman Fields' office will be monitoring the comments and different things of that nature. Um, and if you, again, as we always try to talk about over here at UrbanCast, is number one, it's about civic engagement and sitting down and having conversations with folk like Congressman Fields here today is what we are supposed to do. And, a lot of times people get it twisted and say it's politics, but it's truly just trying to figure out what's going on is actually civic engagement. And, right. Um, the other thing I'd like to say to everyone is that if you are not registered to vote, you can go out there to www.govote.com and get registered to vote. We have a lot of pressing issues that are in front of us right now. With that said, Congressman Fields, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, not much to say about me. I'm a member of Congress. I was elected this year, last year. Took office this year. And right now I'm doing a listening tour. I'm going across the district talking to my constituents, but more importantly, hearing what they have to say so that when I go back to Washington, I'll be, perhaps a better representative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I encourage all members of Congress to do. Go back. We're on district break now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started in South Louisiana, and I'm in Central Louisiana. And we're going to work Central Louisiana for a few days, and then we're going to go up to North Louisiana. And we have a town hall meeting actually tonight. So we're doing everything we can do to just get input from the citizens here in Central Louisiana. First, give them a legislative update as to what we are doing, what has been done in Congress. And I'm going to touch on a lot of that as we sit here. But I want to thank you because people need this kind of engagement. This is so important. I mean, people talk about, why we don't have the number of people getting involved in the political process like we had in times past. It's because, we need more people like you. Because I don't believe that they're apathetic people. I think they're just uninspired. And when they have, talk shows like this one, it certainly gives them some insight and gives them, reasons to be involved. We are on an August recess, and before we left Washington, we passed the big ugly bill. They call it a beautiful bill. There's nothing beautiful about, taking 17 million people's health care. And that's why I consistently call it the ugly bill, because it's just ugly, and it's particularly ugly for the state of Louisiana. Because we have so many people. We have 1.6 million people that take advantage of Medicaid. They're Democrats, they're Republicans, they're black, they're white, they're all people. And to take, thousands of people off of their health care benefits, to me, is not the right direction to go in. And so many people lost their SNAP benefits. About 200,000 people will lose their SNAP benefits. So there'll be babies going to bed at night hungry. They're not Democratic babies, Republican babies. They're going to be hungry babies. And so that's why I fought so hard to try to kill the big ugly bill. Wasn't successful, and now it's the law. But it also gives the richest of the rich people in this country, the people who least need a tax break, a big tax break. And it increased the deficit by over $3 trillion. And then, right before we left Washington, we voted on something to, call a rescission package, where Congress actually went back and took money that they had appropriated in years past. $1.1 billion from public radio and public TV. I fought hard on that because, there are a lot of people in this district who are rural. Who don't have immediate access to broadband. And the only way they get their emergency information in terms of hurricanes and emergency disasters is through public radio. And so it's been a very busy 7 months. Immigration. Listen, we do need to do something about our borders. I advocated that when I was running for office, and I'm advocating it now. But at the end of the day, the way we're going about doing it is wrong. I sent a letter to Secretary Noam before I left Washington, urging her to have these ICE agents to identify themselves. We don't live in a third world country. We live in the United States of America, and no law enforcement agency in this country should be walking around with masks, unidentifying themselves and arresting people, because that's dangerous for the person they're arresting, and is also dangerous for them. And so hopefully she'll respond to it, because I just think that's at best draconian. So there's a lot of issues we deal with. We're going to talk about it tonight at the town hall meeting. And but I'm just so happy to be with you. I'm so happy to be your guest.
Okay, and the first live interview that I've had.
Great,
I did quite a few of them. We were born in the COVID era, and
Right.
so Zooming it and StreamYard it has been our way of doing it.
Yeah.
so sitting down with you today is the very first. So I appreciate that. Our team said, Jack, you've been working really hard over the weekend.
No, when my team told me we're going to make a stop in Alexandria and have a town hall meeting. We have town hall meetings in all of the 10 parishes that we represent.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, we need to call Jack. I want to talk to Jack.
All right.
No, this is the only way I believe that politicians ought not come just during election time. You should come during election times, obviously, but you should be constant, because we got to get people more excited about participating in our process, in the voting process, because elections have consequences. Right now, we're celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. There's so many people who actually died to give us this right today, and it's under attack. It really upsets me when you have a president of the United States of America who takes the position, okay, I need 5 more Republican seats so that Republicans can stay in a majority in the House. And so I'm gonna go to Texas and I'm gonna just have them redistrict themselves and give us 5 more seats. That is like unheard of, and now you got Texas legislators who have left the state to avoid a quorum. Like this president or not, he's just going about everything the wrong way. And I really feel bad that we as a Congress are allowing him to do it. And I'm impressed with these legislators from Texas who are saying, no, we're just not going to session, because it is wrong. Redistricting is something that states do every 10 years. That's right. As a result of the census, unless there's a violation of the Voting Rights Act, like we've had in Louisiana. But to redistrict because you want more seats in your party is just not the appropriate way to deal with redistricting.
That's a good segue into what we want to talk about, because I want to take a deep dive in a couple of things that that's going on within the 6th district. Of course, the recent message from the Supreme Court, but in addition to the redistricting of what we have right now, Congressman Garrett Graves was the congressman. He's kind of sitting out right now. He has the last I looked, he had a pretty big sized war chest. And do you think former Congressman Graves set this one out in anticipation of this potential decision coming out by the Supreme Court? And do you think, do you believe this was part of a broader plan or broader strategy?
In terms of Congressman Graves, I don't know his reasons for setting it out. But I do know that Louisiana's minority population, black population, is over 33%. Louisiana black citizens in Louisiana make up over 33% of its total population. It is absolutely not just unfair, it is crazy, it is asinine to not think that blacks are not entitled to 2 of the 6 congressional seats.
Right.
You know, I mean, listen, it's not about Cleo, it's not about Graves, it's about right and wrong. It's just wrong. This seat is not for me. This seat was created perhaps because people like me fought for it, but this seat is for to give a person who looks like me an opportunity to be elected. That's all this seat does. That's all of these majority black seats do. They don't guarantee that a black will be elected to the U.S. Congress. They only give them an opportunity. Without this seat, we have no opportunity because of the voting patterns in Louisiana. And we need to continue to fight for inclusion. You know, you got a president who, on his first day in office, he signed an executive order to do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, who does that? I mean, when did it become unpopular to be diverse? You know, to be inclusive, you know, to be equal, you know, I mean, and that's the Congress I'm faced with every single day I walk into the halls. You know, Congressman Jonathan Jackson and I from Illinois, we started a diversity, equity, and inclusion caucus because those words, and we ought not even call it DEI, just call it what it is: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have a president who want to just do away with, you know, Black history. You know, he had items moved out of the Library of Congress. You know. But that's the times that we live in, and I try to encourage people every single day. You know, elections have consequences, and just like we're celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, it's under attack. You know, and we have a president that cares, and you know, on the verge of having a Supreme Court who cares little about the Voting Rights Act.
You know, again, pushing back on or diving a little deeper into the war chest that the other guy that could potentially run for this particular seat would have. Do you think that there should be some reforms in the way we fund these particular seats?
I think there should be some reform. I do think that you know, the independent expenditure is what has really gotten out of hand. I think it should be let a member who is running or a person who's running, let them raise their money. Don't let third parties get in and involve themselves. What we call dark money. You know, you start getting hit with ads, you don't know where they're coming from, and they come up with an organization paid for by Citizens for Better Government. And I think that's unfair. It's unfair to the voters. It's certainly unfair to the person who's running. I think it should be like it used to be. You know, a candidate qualifies for office. You got the rules. You can't raise but so much money from each individual. Can't have corporate contributions, and you have to report it. That's fair game. But when you start letting third parties, you know, sneak into races and use that third party money, and they don't have to be disclosed, I think that's not good for the public in my view. But that would be one of the big changes I would have. Look, you know, quite frankly, Mr. Graves have raised a lot of money, and I commend him for doing it. I mean, he's been in office for, I don't know what, 6 terms, 5 or 6 terms, and he's been able to mount up a sizable war chest. That's fair game, but it's not fair game to have a third party to come in and start putting money in the race, and you don't know where it's coming from.
The argument before the court was deliberately drawn to ensure a majority black district, which some are calling unconstitutional. But if that is the case, if that's the case, shouldn't we have just redrawn all of the lines? AI is so smart these days.
Right.
We could have met all of the thresholds of what the Constitution calls for. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I think the Supreme Court is at a crossroads. I mean, at the end of the day, the Supreme Court gave us clear guidelines as to how we create majority-minority seats. In Louisiana, we followed those guidelines. And now you have, white plaintiffs who bring a lawsuit saying that their 14th Amendment rights have been violated because of the creation of the seat. Well, I mean, I think if you rule in their favor, you open up a whole another can of worms, because, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody have a right, 14th Amendment right. Everybody, black people, white people, any citizen who's in America has a 14th Amendment right. And so then what does it say to a black person who's being represented by a majority, by a white person? Do they not have the same 14th Amendment right? And I think that's one of the reasons why the Supreme Court punted, because they have to really take their time. And we have followed. Look, I was in the legislature when we created this seat. In fact, I chaired the committee. We followed all of the principles of redistricting. Was there a district that was more compact than this one? Yes, it was. I mean, I introduced it. Ed Price introduced it. Several, Royce Duplessis, the 3 of us, we introduced a plan that was more compact. But at the end of the day, the legislature chose not to pass that plan because they were protecting incumbents. And the courts have said that's okay. They wanted to protect the Speaker of the House. The courts have said in the past that's okay. They wanted to protect Steve Scalise, who was the majority leader. The courts have said in the past that's okay. And they wanted to protect Julia Letlow, who is the only female member of our delegation. Okay, race was not the predominant reason for the creation of this district. It was not the predominant reason for the district to look the way it looked. It was politics. And the case is clear. And I think we made that point very clear in the legislature. And I think the courts have seen it. So they got to figure out how they rule on this district, because we have followed every single rule handed down by the Supreme Court. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, just like this big ugly bill. The president calls it a big beautiful bill. It's not beautiful in my view. The district which I represent, they say it's a snake. There are districts that are larger than my district. There are districts in Louisiana that have more parishes than the district that I represent. And excuse me when I said my district. The district that I represent is the People's District. But because it's represented by a minority, it got to pass a beauty contest. And I don't accept that. And I think the courts are going to have to give us real guidelines as to how we are to draw districts, not only in Louisiana, but across this country.
So as it relates to a more compact, and you notice we don't talk about those other proposals that were on the table.
Yeah. Right. I mean, let's take Julia Letlow. I mean, she's my colleague. I mean, Julia Ledlow's district is longer than mine. I mean, you got to cover more territory in her district.
Yeah, because that's the original one we were in.
Yeah, then you have to cover in my district. I mean, my district. Here I go again. The district that I represent. Because, I mean, she runs from Monroe all the way to Washington Parish. I mean, does it have more the parishes? Do they have less parishes split? Probably so. Yes, they do. But in terms of geographic area, it's much larger. Take Speaker Johnson. I mean, have you looked at his district? His district. I mean, his district I mean, he has more parishes than I do, right, and a lot of rural land. So I think the courts are going to have to decide, and I think they made a mistake when they did away with subsection 5 of the Voting Rights Act, because that helped us a lot, because all states that had a history of discriminating against blacks, before they passed a law that affected people's right to vote, it had to be pre-cleared by the Justice Department, and that was one of the tools that a lot of folk use so that they wouldn't have these problems that we're having today all over the country.
The New York Times recently named, I think it's a big viral TikTok video going around right now. They recently named Alexandria and AEX the busiest deportation hub in the United States under ICE. With this massive federal presence in our backyard, are there any real economic benefits to local businesses, or is this just federal operation that extracts more than it gives?
Yeah, well, there's no real economic benefit outside of like England Park, because these are like, this is like a deportation center, like where you come and I don't think you stay over 72 hours, supposedly, and they fly you out. And it's a central place because it was in England. It was an Air Force base by the military, so they could bring the big planes in and they could get people in and out. The problem that I have with the immigration center in Alexandria is they're not allowing for oversight. As a member of Congress, I have I have a legal right by statute to go into any deportation center, any immigration center in this state, in this country, not in the state, in this country. I have a legal right to do that. It's in the law. And the problem I have is this administration is not allowing members of Congress to do their job, and that is to oversight. And so when we start doing things like that, and we got a lawsuit. We got lawsuits. We got over 100 and some odd lawsuits against many of the executive orders and some of the behaviors of this president. And as you know, lawsuits have to work their way up, because when you win it in one court, you got to go to the next, all the way to the Supreme Court. The problem we have is this president just doesn't feel that he has to be accountable to anybody. And when we have members of Congress who go to deportation centers, and then you have the person on the other side of the fence with guns and they say, no, you can't come here. And we say to them, listen, I have a legal right to be here. In fact, it's my duty to be here. And they say, well, you're not coming here. I've been ordered by, Homeland Security or ICE not to let anybody on. And then when you let the secretary know that those are the problems we're having, and then she and he are like blind to it, like, so you just have a problem. And then you got a president who instituted these type of draconian policies. It turns democracy on its head. And we're going to get this lawsuit through the courts. The Supreme Court, we feel very confident the Supreme Court is going to rule that Congress does have a role. And you can't stop Congress from doing its job. And but we have to go through all of that.
Right. And I think what drove the question about the economic impact on it was, all of the down stream activities that go into making this operation successful, i.e., food service. Just keeping the facilities maintained. I know there's a company that it's a private company that's kind of in that. But as with almost everything, it's just like when England Airport or England Air Force Base shut down, it was one of the biggest blows to our economy that we could have ever had because of all of the downstream jobs that were actually created and going to make that operation successful. And I guess a lot of folk are concerned about, I could provide, the food service for it. I could provide X. I could provide Y. Why are we bringing those resources in from other places, and they winning off of these economic opportunities as opposed to the people right here locally?
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive into contracts, but I will. As a result of this show, I will, look into it. I mean, there's no reason why local people should not be benefiting from, what's taking place at the airport. And I will look into it because, I just don't know who's doing the food service. For example.
Right.
I don't know who's doing.
Yeah.
But it's a legitimate question,
Right.
And it's a question that I'm going to get you an answer to.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Let's jump on over here because I know you got a time to go. But carbon capture is something that's really on the mind of the folk right here in Central Louisiana. There's been, a lot of the citizens are saying, "Hey, we're taking carbon from, other places, and we're going to bury it under our soil." And it would have been okay if maybe the jobs would have been here too, because Louisiana is, we do need those jobs here, and I don't think that there's an argument against that point. But the thing that we're getting a lot of feedback on is just the rollout of the carbon capture and the storage of the carbon, and now the issue is the discussion is out in the rural community because we've actually been covering it. But when it comes to Alexandria, not one of those, no grassroots organizations are on the ground talking about carbon capture here in LA. None of the churches. And so we're getting a lot of feedback from constituents and people who follow us and saying, why don't we know anything about it? And I've heard the good things, because when you look at the flip side of it, one of the companies that's going to use this capturing process is the Sun Gas facility, and they're thinking about bringing about 100 jobs, 1,400 jobs of construction-related jobs and different things of that nature. But on the same token, people are wondering why our leadership, is kind of like completely out of the loop in this equation. Police jury, state representatives, state senators, our city council, our parish police jurymen, and everyone. They just seem to be completely gone.
Well, that's unfortunate. First of all, carbon capture. Some people call it carbon sequestration. Where they capture carbon and then they store it. Off the bat, that's a good thing. It makes sense. It protects the environment, perhaps. It works if it's done right, if it's stored right, if it's safe. But it does not work when people are excluded from the process. When the local folk where the carbon is going to be stored are not notified, not talked to. When local people who can do some work are not talked to. My biggest concern, and we had some debates in the legislature when I was here in the legislature. My biggest concern is the safety. People who have been, we live in a state that's highly petrochemical. Um, I have a district that's highly, particularly in the southern part of my district, highly petrochemical. You have to develop relationships with the people in your community if you plan to do uh, carbon capture, carbon sequestration projects. For example, the EPA gave, I think Louisiana, I was looking the other night, we have more permits, Title VI permits, issued in Louisiana than any other state in the nation. Uh, it makes no sense for, you know, those folk who are interested in doing the capture not to talk to community leaders, environmental groups. They're not going to go away. They're not going to be silent. Uh, I'm going to be an advocate, for a safe environment because I think people, you know, live in enough fear. Uh, we have enough cancer, for example.
Okay.
I just think business and the community need to come together and try to work these problems out. Create jobs. The community need to be assured that the process you're using is safe. And the federal government, I mean, EPA, EPA has to be the watchdog. It's not so much today as it was yesterday. You know, just the other day, the president issued an executive order to had EPA rather to release the regulations that they had put in place in South Louisiana for the Cancer Alley.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough situation. We can't ever compromise our health and safety for jobs.
Right. So going forward on this thing, because it's so complicated here in Central Louisiana right now, what would be your recommendation to local leadership?
Well, I think local leadership, they need to sit with these companies and they need to have a clear understanding of what they are planning to do and where they're planning to do it. And then they need to bring in the community. There need to be community meetings about the plans for carbon capture. And everybody need to buy in. Everybody need to be on the same page, same sheet of music. And I think the overall project would be more successful if they approach it that way. But to come in and say, okay, well, we're going to do this, and we don't need to talk to the elected officials. Certainly, we don't need to talk to the churches and environmental groups. We really don't want to talk to you. We're going to do it because we got the permit to do it. We're going to do it because we can. That is a recipe for disaster. I think their approach should be: listen, this is a technology that we're using here in this community to preserve the environment. We're going to do it safely, and we're going to store it safely. People want to feel safe, in their communities. And if I was a business, the first thing I would do is talk to community leaders and people in the community to ensure them that this is a safe process. And absent doing that, I think because even if it is safe, people don't know it's safe. Mm-hmm. It's just like not being safe at all.
One of the last topics I want to hit you with, Congressman, is hearing now that crime continues to dominate the headlines. Many point to the fact that people are living in times of desperation. And it's something that's going on all over the state, but particularly here in the city of Alexandria. And they say that the lack of jobs, economic development, are some of the roots of the real part of the problem. Although you do have some folk that like to say the family. Our local police department is been said to be some 65 officers now here in Alexandria. While over just across the river, over in Pineville, where your town hall is going to be tonight, is nearly at full capacity. Has your office, had any discussion with local leadership on things that you guys could do at the federal level and help us here locally?
Interesting you mentioned that, because there are two bills in the legislature, and some people who are listening to this podcast, they're gonna say Cleo sounds like a broken record. He always talks about that. One of the ways we can fix this crime problem, and it won't happen overnight, but one of the ways we can surely fix it is, first of all, get more teachers in the classroom. Students today are different from students yesterday.
Absolutely.
There are more challenges. We didn't have iPhones when I was in school. We didn't have all this technology when I was in school. These students today, they have real challenges. And so education is important. So one of the things we can do is get more teachers in the classroom. How do we do that? I got a bill, and I got several co-authors, and I'm trying to get more, that will provide, when you go to college and you major in education, because we have a real serious teacher shortage in this country, not just in Louisiana, in this country. And if you, after you graduate, you stay in the country and you practice your profession for 8 years, we forgive your student loan. Makes sense to me. And I'm trying to make it make sense for the entire Congress. The second bill, now this one is a little harder. Not a little harder, much harder. Universal pre-K.
Okay.
Now, because I'm telling y'all, that's what can make the real difference in this country. Our kids are starting school late. We just made kindergarten mandatory, when I was chairman of education, but kindergarten is too late. And our parents are choosing between going to work or raising their child, their kid. I want every parent to have universal pre-K, early learning. Now, the cost of that is astronomical. It's going to cost a whole lot of money. And that's the biggest challenge I have with members of Congress, to convince them that this really is a cost saver. Because when we spend the money on the front side of life, give that kid a chance. So when you when he's in the third grade and he takes a reading test, he reads at grade level. Kids are not born not lacking school. I mean, their brain developed the most between birth and 5 years of age. And our kids are not being exposed to that type of education until they're now, in kindergarten. And I want to change that. And if we change that dynamic, I think we're going to reduce the crime. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to get more teachers in the classroom, because people are not majoring in education. Why? Because they don't feel like the country respects educators. We don't pay them for the work they do. We got to and it's a hard thing to deal with, because right now I'm dealing with a president who don't even want the Department of Education. We have to put more emphasis on education. We put more emphasis on education, we reduce crime. We give kids an opportunity, a fighting chance. Kids don't want to do what they don't feel like they're good at. You tell me I'm reading below grade level in the third grade, I don't want to go to school. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, and these kids are so sharp. They just got to be exposed early.
Now, as a citizen myself, I definitely believe, from a strategy standpoint, and looking out for the long term, that education is the right place to be putting, be building the tools right now. But what about right now? I was sitting and talking to some folk just a while ago. We had elder saying, I'm afraid to set up my porch, this, that, and the other. What are some short, is it some short things? And just reading around, there are some things that Congress is doing and the federal government is doing with cities and municipalities to get them the resources that
there are things we can do on the short term, obviously. I mean, you give people an opportunity, to go to work. There are a lot of, folk who are unemployed, and we got to give them jobs that meet their skills. That's needed all over the country. Certainly needed in Alexandria. Policing need to police right. Police. When I was growing up, when you saw a police officer, you felt safe. You felt like you could stop him, if you had a problem. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I got a flat, and I couldn't wait to see a police officer because I could wave him down and help him. Those days, police officers now, they feel that their job is no longer, not all of them. I mean, it's to serve and protect. Many just feel like it's to protect. And we gotta get back to making people feel, safe around police officers, and in neighborhoods, people need to. It really takes a village to raise a child. I mean, all of us as neighbors, we have to look out for one another, and not feel bad when you expose wrongdoing, in your community. It's going to take all of us, but I really do think if we can, give Little Johnny some head start with education, not short term. It's a long term problem, solution rather. Little Johnny gonna feel better about school because when you grade him in the third grade, he's gonna be able to read on par, and he's gonna be able to do math on par, and he's gonna then like school. I mean, really, he's gonna like school. He's gonna want to go to school, and I think as a nation, we're gonna have to, address, that critical mass of kids just being left out early. And they got to compete with the kids who have not been left out.
That's right.
And it's only because of their economic status. And until we erase that problem, we're going to always have these great divides. And I'm working hard in Congress. I want to get rid of that divide. I don't care. The kid grew up like me, poor. As poor could be. 10 children. Daddy died when I was 5. Poor. I want that kid, to have the same opportunity, a kid who comes from middle class or the very wealthy, because they deserve it, man. They deserve it, and that's gonna be a hard fight, but that's one of the big fights I have.
Well, I think I want to just go ahead and end this conversation on that economic opportunity for these kids, because that is that is the big issue that, we see it happening right here all the time.
Let's tell you how equal this playing field could be in education. Take sports,
right?
For example. Why do our kids excel in sport? Why do they excel in basketball? Why do they excel in football and baseball, even baseball, golf?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, they excel at what they've been exposed to early on. They start playing basketball early,
right?
And they like it. They start playing football early, they like it. At the end of the day, our kids are no different than anybody else's kid. The only thing that's different is exposure. And then we do a good job at testing kids here in Louisiana. We test them in the third grade, and we tell them you can't read, you can't write, you can't spell, you can't do math, and then you want that kid to wake up every morning and go back to that same school. We got to catch them early, give them a head start in life, and I think it'll be a better society.
I know my business partner constantly is talking about the recreation programs, and And just those recreational programs themselves, teach a lot of discipline, a lot of leadership, a lot
Absolutely.
of right. And the idea I was just looking at a story this weekend where little kids, 3 years old, and they were out on the football field. And I'm like, my God, they doing the same thing the big guys are doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and look, I try to practice what I preach.
Right.
I started the Louisiana Leadership Institute in 1993, and I have kids that I come back every week and I tutor. Because I used to take the kids. You used to have to be in the sixth grade to be a member of the Leadership Institute. And I changed that whole dynamic. Now I take them in pre-K. Because nobody wants to spend time with the young babies, but that's where we got to spend that time, man. And so now we take them. They come in. They babies, and we have to spend more time. We divide them up, but that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
Well, Congressman, I truly appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with our audience over here. I'll definitely be covering tonight over.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, we're going to definitely be covering that there. The other thing I want to say before we go any further, did you have anything else you want to say to folk out there?
No, I mean whatever you want to talk about.
No, I was getting ready to close.
I just want to thank you. And I want to thank your audience. Tune in. I mean, look, I tell people all the time, you're not going to agree with every single thing I do in Washington, D.C. My mom often told me, when you find two people agree on everything, one is not needed. All I'm trying to do is do my very best for the majority of the people that I represent. And that's the purpose of this town hall meeting tonight. I want to find out what your thoughts are, because I'm not always right, and don't expect me to be always right. But I got one vote. Every time that machine opens in Washington, I can only vote one time. And it's impossible for me to make everybody happy, when I take that vote. So coming back home, listening to you, hearing what you have to say, that helps me, And so hopefully you'll come out tonight to the town hall meeting and stay in tune with this podcast. No, and I really mean it.
I appreciate that.
Because people, the more people get together, be it on radio, or be it on TV, be it podcast, be it at town hall meeting, and they talk about their issues, it makes us all a better society. So thank you.
It truly does. Again, we would definitely encourage you guys to share this feed. Make your comments known. We're going to encourage the Congressman's staff to get out there and make sure they answer any questions that might pop up. I want to remind everybody, again, it's important that we have these kind of discussions and understand that at this point you are sitting congressman for the Congressional District number 6, and we should be able to have a civil conversation and be civically engaged with the folk who are actually representing us at the federal level. So I want to encourage folk to get involved and be a part of the conversation. It's quick for us to make some very negative comments and different things of that nature, but by putting up a brick wall, we don't get anywhere. You know what I mean? But if we can sit down and have these type of conversations, I definitely want to say to everyone out there, if you are not registered to vote, make sure you get out there and go register to vote. Next year is going to be a very busy election cycle, because I know here nationwide, right.
Midterm elections. It's going to be so crucial, so critical that every single person get out and vote. Listen, if you want to change, elections have consequences, and if you want to change what's taking place in Washington today, you got to get out and vote. And I think citizens all over this country need to get out and vote. And people who look like me, y'all need, we need to get out and vote and exercise our constitutional right. because we have no one to blame but ourselves when we are faced with these tough times. And I was speaking to a group of, I was speaking to the NAACP Freedom Fund banquet the other night in Lake Charles. This too shall pass. Weeping endure but a night, but joy cometh in the morning.
Absolutely.
But we have the power to change it, and hopefully people will go to the polls and change it.
Absolutely. Well, Congressman Fields, I definitely want to say thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and end this stream. If you just hang tight 1 second for me.
Hey, did you know Long's Products is a family-owned janitorial supply with mops, brooms, trash bags, and they even have food service disposables, carry-out plates, and to-goes? Check us out.